actually interviewing some possible private investor, but one of their main concerns is the fact that, I don't have a lot of properties on my portfolio or done enough properties. So they are hesitant on whether or not, they would like to get involved. What are some of the keys strategies that you can recommend in order to actually get them over to the side where they'll feel a little bit more comfortable when it comes to lending the capital for for the next investment?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, how do you know them?
Our co-workers.
Okay. Just the fact that they have told you what their primary concern is really helpful, because if you actually know what they're concerned about, you can address it. If you don't know what they're concerned about, you're just kind of, fighting with the wind, right? So I think what you want to do is establish your credibility, right? And show them that you know what you're doing. That's one. The other is show them what their risk is, right? Because they're concerned that you might not know what you're doing is actually rooted in them saying, well, I might lose my money, right? They actually don't care that whether you know what you're doing or not. They care if they lose their money, right? So I think one thing that's really helpful in situations like that is to explain to them how secure private lending is. All right. So let's say they'll make up to $100,000 available to you, and you buy a house for 50, you put 20 into it, and so you only need $70,000, and it appraises for $100,000, right? What you could do is a normal lender would lend up to 75% of the ARV. What you can say is, well, if you have concerns about my experience, that's fine. We can adjust our terms to accommodate for that risk. Right. So one of the ways we could do that is we could say, well, instead of lending up to 75% of the ARV, let's just lend up to 70% of the ARV. Right. So what you would be doing is lending $70,000 on a property that's currently worth 50. And then when I put work into it, we expect it to appraise to 100. Right. So what that does is, let's say that I really screw up all of the rehab and it's only worth 80. You still get your money back. Right. And if you don't get your money back, you get the property. So you just made an extra $10,000. And then all you've got to do is put it on the MLS, list it, cash out your money. Right. So I think that's part of what's helpful, is explaining how much risk do they actually have in it. So does that help? Tell me a little bit more about the conversation, how it went.
Well, he has experience himself, being a handyman and also dealing with contractor. It seemed like we tend to go back to him having bad experience with contractors, and that's pretty much say an equation you can really control when it comes to them. And that's why, in a way, I try to convince him that sometimes that's when we need to do our due diligence before we get into contract with, a specific contractor, and putting stipulations on the contract of what we expect, how the payment's supposed to be going, whether it's a weekly basis or by room basis.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, you can ensure that they complete the task by the stated date. And you also hold them accountable of not getting paid if they don't complete a certain task by a certain time. So, but it seemed like he felt like he had a real bad experience before when it comes to dealing with contractor not doing the job or not completing the job and overpaying for the job, especially with how the prices are right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So, okay. So this also lays in the realm of establishing your credibility, because right now he doubts your credibility. Right. So I think what you should do is explain the process to him and help him understand what you're going to do to make it secure for him. So the first thing you want to do is say, okay, once, we would agree to terms in principle, and then I'd find a property. Once I find a property, I'm going to send all the details over to you ahead of time. So I'm going to say, these are the property details. Here's the address. Here's the property we're looking at. I think it's going to cost $25,000 in rehab. It's going to appraise at this, and it's going to cost this. Here's the expected, here's how I evaluated my comps, and here's how I calculated all of this stuff. And then they'll give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Right? Then at that point, I'm going to connect you in with the title company. So I'll let the title company know and say, hey, this is my lender. I'm copying you in on the email chain. This is my lender. Here are the terms we've agreed to. This type of rate, this type of origination fee, no prepayment penalty, all of the details that you care about, put it in there. They'll confirm. All right. So you're going through the title company that helps secure their investment. Right. Then another thing that you're going to do. So first, they're going to be able to evaluate the property on their own and say, I either like this or I don't like this. Second, you're going through a title company. So it's way more secure there. All of the actual legal documentation is done by an attorney at the title company. It's not their attorney. It's not your attorney. It's at the title company. If they want to have their own attorney, that's totally fine too. I've had lenders do that as well. In addition to that, if you wanted to on the note, I use this as a last resort, but if you wanted to, you can personally guarantee the note. So if for some reason you screwed everything up, you have to pay him back, right? You can't just put this under your LLC and say, you know, I'm declaring bankruptcy, you're out all this money, right? You know that's not going to happen. But if you personally guarantee it with your own money, then you're in a much better situation, right? Then you've just got to show him that you have the assets to be able to cover that, and you do. All right. I know more about your personal situation. You do have the assets to be able to cover that. All right. So that's the second part. Then the third part is how you're going to interact with the contractor. Right. So in the lending terms, they're going to release. So lender. So let's call him Joe. Joe releases $50,000 to you up front. All right. And then he'll give you, say, $5,000 at closing for the first distribution of the property. This is assuming we're doing the $50,000 property with $20,000 rehab. That'll appraise for 100. Right? You're going to split the rehab payments into, let's say, 4 sections of $5,000, so that he doesn't give you more money until you've shown him the progress has actually happened on schedule, and it's happened the way that we expected it to. Right? So that puts the accountability on you, not on Joe. Right? So I think those are 3 areas that you can explain that would instill more confidence in him. And when you're talking to him, if it seems like he's close but still unsure, just ask him, like, what's your biggest concern? Like, you know, we think about risk. How likely is it to happen is one piece, and then the other piece is, what if it goes wrong? How badly does it go wrong? How much is it going to cost you? Because in that situation, the likelihood of it going wrong is pretty low. But that's probably the most substantial percentage, if you will, the likelihood of it going wrong, or the chance of it going wrong. The cost of it going wrong to them is actually pretty low. And the more that you can communicate that, the more confidence they'll actually have.